Welcome back, folks, to another week of Mount & Blade Bannerlord news updates. Today we'll be coming back to talk about two different blog posts. The first being the info pack blog titled Skirmish Gameplay, that finally features some beta gameplay from the ongoing test, and last week's one titled Sieges Part 2, focusing on deeper aspects of the system as a whole, mainly pinpointing a few details about the engines themselves. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Kicking it off with the Siege blog post, last week they revealed some more detailed information about the development phase of Bannerlord and how as it steadily proceeds, they are constantly looking at how best to allow players to interact with the game's many features. Since sieges are such a big part of Bannerlord and Mount & Blade as a whole, being how you assault and defend your factions and enemy or allied faction locations, it's safe to say that it's something the majority of players may experience at one point or another. As talked about in previous Siege blog posts, sieges in Bannerlord are quite a bit more than just simply waiting for the attackers to initiate the assault or vice versa. There's a lot of active back and forth between the besiegers and the besieged, as they seek to gain an advantage over one another or hamper each other's progress, even on the world map. They felt that as a result, it would be best to provide players with the relatively high access of visual representation to make the initial stages of a siege feel more engaging for both the attackers and the defenders. When a settlement gets besieged, a siege camp gets set up by the attacking force with individual tents being placed down for each attacking lord, which sounds amazing for companion-built kingdoms. This was actually something I loved doing on my playthroughs, filling an army with companions and training them up to a very high level before giving them an army of their own so that I'm confident that they'll have what it takes to lead. It would be so cool to see them have their own tent in my war camp. Following this as well, both sides have the ability to construct siege engines to be used in the bombardment phase that takes place on the world map and the final assault that takes place in a scene, which we've seen info on before. Each settlement has a limited number of slots assigned to it, which players can select between and choose which siege engines to build in which order. This should also be something that's given some tactical consideration, as the siege machines will automatically target whatever is closest to them. Alongside us being able to build our own siege towers and rams, we also have access to an assortment of ranged siege engines as seen in the trailer, which can also be used to attack enemy machines, soldiers, and walls during the bombardment phase in the world map. Likewise, defenders can choose to hunker down and avoid building any machines while they wait for a relief force to break the siege. However, this would only leave the attackers free to bombard the walls without resistance. We'll get access to a couple of ranged ones as well, including ballistas and trebuchets, using anything and everything in our arsenals to overwhelm the enemy. One cool thing about the world map system too is it also shows us details like hit point bars on the engines and wall sections, alongside giving us more access to what we can do on the map itself, like pulling back damaged engines to reserves and putting them back on the front line as needed. It's safe to say that I think there's a lot to be excited about when it comes to this new siege engine. To be honest, I wasn't expecting this amount of depth coming in, but if we're able to experience all these features without much issue, I think we'll have a good time on our hands. Looking forward to it. And now on to some more recent exciting news for Bannerlord. It appears that with Gamescom on the horizon, the team at TaleWorlds has decided to showcase some of their Skirmish gameplay mode, which comes directly from last week's beta test. Throughout the footage, you'll see a variety of different combat styles, but alongside that, we also get some look at the animations and the objective of Skirmish and how it plays out. In these types of situations, I typically use a sword and shield, as I'm so used to overhead slashing down onto enemies from atop a ladder in siege defenses and Warband. It's made it so sword and board has become my most used weapon in Mount & Blade, although I'll occasionally enjoy bringing a two-hander, and I always bring a bow or throwing weapons despite the weapon I'm using. Luckily in the footage we get view of all of those, from different camera angles and the like. The nice part I like about Mount & Blade's multiplayer combat and animation style is that even if you're using a two-hander, it's still incredibly possible, if not downright easy if you know what you're doing, to get around someone's shield and execute your attack. In some of this footage we can see a bow user take down two targets with ease by shooting their exposed points, and two-handed weapons are capable of this in a different form. For example, if you were to wind up your horizontal slash and step forward just enough to hit the tip of someone's shoulder while they block, or their arm for instance, your attack will still execute despite their shield guard still being up. It's something that a lot of Mount & Blade players tend to use in multiplayer, so you'll see a lot of peculiar footwork being used and angles of attack to get around someone's block. As we found out before, the Skirmish mode also does feature a class system for the players to be able to pick their loadouts, and it's very important to make sure you spend your points wisely, as they do begin to matter very much throughout the match. Overall, my impression about the game so far is that although animation-wise it's not perfect by any means, and in other areas as well, it does a good job on improving on the gameplay we've grown used to in Mount & Blade. Bannerlord seems to deliver a lot more detail in almost every aspect, which I would honestly say is just fine for me. This map specifically does feel a bit small, but I doubt they were going for a big map size as much as they were instant action when it comes to the skirmish mode. And Mountain Blade was never about the animations or the graphics itself. It was about giving players the freedom to truly step into the world of Calradia and make their mark on the world, or burn that mark into the heart of the citizens, and also the modding capabilities that it also had. This series has always been one that accurately represents what a true sandbox is, and as long as they deliver this in the next title, I'm 100% game for it. I will say though that animation wise, I will always prefer the florist mode of drawing your bow over the regular method. It just looks so awesome to me when you unholster the arrow and draw it from the bottom up. If you don't know what I'm talking about and you haven't played the florist mod yet on Warband, you have got to go try it. It's really sweet. Anyway folks, that's about all I have to say on what we've seen so far. We've seen a lot of multiplayer and single player aspects either through footage or the blog post, but what we haven't seen in a while is the full amount of what a single player experience will look like, progression wise. That's the part I'm most excited about alongside the modding aspect, and I'm still waiting on some of that Prophecy of Pendor or any of the Lord of the Rings and or Viking based overhauls we might get. Bring all of it on and we'll be ready. And with that folks, thank you all very much for watching. I sincerely appreciate it, and you all have a wonderful night or day, and farewell.